Today we are going to deal with scientific method. It includes the definition of scientific method, the objectives of scientific method, the characteristics of scientific method, and the steps involved in the process of scientific method. What is scientific method? It is a method or the procedure by which the scientists use in the pursuit of science. It is actually the method of solving a problem scientifically. It is referred as the method of science or the method of scientist. Different scientists define scientific method differently. According to fields, scientific method is a systematic pursuit of knowledge involving the recognition and formulation of a problem, the collection of data through observation and experimentation, the formulation of a hypothesis, and the testing and confirmation of that hypothesis. Then next is the characteristics of scientific method. There are 7 characteristics for scientific method. The first one is objectivity. This means that scientific method is objective in its approach. The second characteristic is definiteness. This implies that scientific method is reliable and valid. The third characteristic of scientific method is verifiability, and this implies the idea that scientific method gives proper verification through experimentation. The fourth characteristic is generality. This gives the idea that scientific method gives generalized application of results. And the fifth characteristic of scientific method is predictability. This gives the idea that scientific method gives the ability of predicting the future outcomes. And the last characteristic of scientific method is modifiability and dynamicity. And this gives the idea of openness for further verification. Next, we are going to the steps involved in scientific method. Scientific method involves different steps. The first step is sensing the problem, and the second one is understanding the problem. The third one is the formulation of tentative solution or the hypothesis, and the fourth one is collecting relevant information or data, and the fifth one is interpreting the data, and the sixth one is selecting the most likely hypothesis, and the seventh one is drawing conclusions and making generalizations, and the last step of scientific method is the application of generalization to new situation. Coming to the details of the steps of scientific method, the first step, as we already told, is the sensing the problem. The first step of scientific method is actually the sensing of a problem. A problematic situation that finds no ready solution is a starting point of scientific method. A problem is actually a felt difficulty for which no ready solution is available. The first step of scientific method is actually sensing the problem, and a problematic situation that finds no ready solution is actually the starting point of scientific method. A problem is actually a felt difficulty that finds no solution to the problem. So the first step is actually the sensing, in which the teacher provides suitable situations in the minds of learners to sense a problem. And the second step of the scientific method is understanding the problem. In this step, actually, the student gives the idea that what should be the aim of the problem, or what is the solution of the problem, etc. And so that will be in the mind of the learner that the problem should be solved in a concise, precise and clear language. The problem is to be stated in the clear and concise language during this step. And the third step is actually the formulation of a tentative solution or hypothesis. On the basis of the previous knowledge related with the problem, the possible tentative solutions named hypothesis are being listed out. And coming to the fourth step of scientific method, that is collecting relevant information or data regarding the problem. After the formulation of the hypothesis, the next step is actually the collection of data regarding the problem to be solved, and this can be done through different methods such as referring books, nature study, field trips, performing experiments and discussing with experts. Then the next step is interpreting the data. This is the most tedious step in scientific method. After collecting the data, the learner or the student have to be critically examine the collected data and they organize it by similarity and differences. And based on this, the superfluous data can be discarded. And this is the most tedious step because it involves reflective thinking. Next step is selecting and testing the most likely hypothesis. All the suitable and appropriate hypotheses that we have listed can be evaluated one by one. And the most likely hypothesis regarding this problem is to be selected for the final solution of the given problem. Then the next step is actually drawing conclusions and making generalizations. The tested hypothesis, if accepted, leads to the conclusion to be formed. The generalization is made by arranging a set of experiments which also show the same conclusion already reached it. The next step is drawing conclusion and making generalization. The tested hypothesis, if accepted, leads to the conclusion to be formed. And the generalization can be made by arranging a set of experiments which also show the same conclusion already reached it. And the last and the final step involved in the scientific method is application of generalization to new situations. The students should apply the generalization to their daily life, and this will bridge the gap between the school life and the life outside the school or to the daily life situations. And these are actually the steps involved in scientific method. So today you have learned about what is scientific method, what is the proper definition of scientific method, what are the objectives of scientific method, what are the different characteristics of scientific method, and the most important one, the steps involved in scientific method. Hope you all are clear about the process of scientific method. Thank you.